And I tell you what, Nini, it was a flip of a switch in my brain. There was no second guessing. I all of a sudden wanted to completely abandon teaching and coaching because as soon as the thought of being a mom happened and not being home and coming home to my baby 3 or 4 times per week, there are women that can do that and that just do that wonderfully and can handle and navigate that. For me, it was a flip of a switch, and I immediately started looking for different jobs.
94, 94, it is more than 94. This is more than 94. Yeah, this more than 94. More than 94, yeah.
Welcome, guys, to another episode of More Than 94, where former athletes redefine success. Today's guest, we have Shatara Stone. She's originally from Fort Smith, Arkansas. She went to school at Arkansas State University and then transitioned to Missouri Southern State, where she started her teaching and coaching career. And after about 6 years of that, she went on to a career in banking. Welcome to the show, Shatara. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good. And I'll go over it again, but the gist of the podcast is to highlight stories for those who went professional in something other than sports after college and that are
Hmm.
doing well in that. And so, first question is, how did you even get into sports, and specifically basketball? Like, what was that journey for you, growing up?
You know, I don't even know how I remember. Actually, we moved a lot. We were a poor family. We went to rental until we, couldn't pay our rent, and then it was on to the next one. I remember there was a house specifically that we moved into, and there was an old, just beaten up basketball goal back in the back.
Yeah.
And I had asked my mom, "Hey, can we clean this up and put it in the ground?" And she did, and she did that for me, and that was probably in 6th grade. So I was kind of a late starter, and from then on, it was kind of never looking back. It was one of those things for me where I could kind of escape, and it was a passion from the very first day. So
And so after that, how did you get into how did you get introduced to AAU basketball? Because you played at Arkansas State, so you had to have gone, high school and get
right,
recruited and
right.
stuff like that.
My journey was probably really different than a lot of people's that at least at Arkansas State. I went to a really small private school. And so as far as recruiting, recruiters aren't coming to watch, games with really small. I mean, the talent level and the talent pool is just so limited
Yeah.
for them to come to. And so I also had coaches that, went to really small schools when they played. And so navigating my journey and trying to get me connected to the right people to go on to the next level was really hard. There wasn't a lot of support because they didn't know how to support me with those steps. So
Hmm.
finally, I had a coach just say, I think your best bet is going to some camps. I played AAU, but again, it was with my school team.
Oh,
So
okay.
we weren't good. We didn't have a lot of talent base. I could have 40 points in a game and the rest of my team would have 4.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so it might, it's just, nobody wants to watch a game like that. So, um, finally it was just like, hey, get yourself out there by going to college camps that you think a school you might be interested in. And
Yeah.
so, actually, ironically, I almost went to Texas. I think it was Texas A&M. It was between Texas A&M and Arkansas State Camp, and I was like, you know what? I think I want to go. I want to stay in Arkansas. I'm going to go to Arkansas State Camp. Um, and ironically, I went there and met Coach Peoples. Coach Peoples started talking to me and keeping in contact with me, and that's when finally they're like, hey, you have a lot of grit. We want to. You have a lot of work to do, but we want to offer you. And
Yeah.
so that's what actually ended up getting me my in and kind of to the next level. So
That's good because I feel like in today's world, but I think people assume that it's only one way to get to college,
mhm.
and it's more than one way to get to college. It's more, and yeah, obviously, in the times have changed now, but it's no one cookie cutter way to get to the next level. Sometimes I feel like here nowadays people think you have to, go to the big high school or
Mhm.
score 1,000 points a game. It's just certain things that people have made like think that that's what's going to get people into college or girls into college, and sometimes that's not the case. And so I think
Right.
that's
And
good to know like everybody don't
right.
have the
And
same
it's
journey.
it's not the easiest way, but if you want to do something like that, um, I'd always encourage people, if they're, listening to this podcast and you feel like you're in that position, ask questions to anybody that you come in contact with that could possibly give you some advice or some, encouragement. Maybe you don't know how to make highlight clips yourself, or you don't have access to them. I didn't,
Right.
and in this day and age, you probably will have those resources. But if you don't have recruiters coming to your specific games, there's other ways to get yourself out there and to get yourself seen, and that's just by putting yourself in the right place. So
That's good. And so you're in college, and I think we played together 1 year. I think one year,
mm,
1 year.
yep. Hmm.
And so you're in college. Kind of walk us through that journey, because I know you had little setbacks. I think it was a knee injury. And so walk us through
Yeah.
that, and then how you got to when you left Arkansas State, and then how did you know Missouri Southern State? How did you get there? Because I don't even think I knew where you went after Arkansas State.
Yeah, so I went into Arkansas State. I knew that I had, from a freshman year, again coming from a small school, I knew I wouldn't be any kind of, key player. But again, it was just kind of, my goal was to work my way up, and have a true freshman year of just, really solidifying higher level skills. Um, Unfortunately, like a lot of athletes see, I started experiencing, I pretty much had an injury bug follow me like a dark cloud.
Yeah.
Um, I started with having, I had some ankle problems at Arkansas State, and then it resulted into a PCL tear. When that happened, that's when it kind of started reevaluating where I was.
Mm.
Um, that's when I went and thought, I had that conversation with coach. He was like, you can stay here, but essentially, I don't know that you're going to get playing time. And, when you're an athlete and you came from high, you went to your high school and you were everything in high school,
Yeah.
you were praised, you were the highest level. It's hard to hear that from any coach, and it's hard to accept that. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I heard that, I thought, I don't want to play for a coach that doesn't think I'm worth anything.
Yeah.
And maybe D2 would be better on my body. So I started looking. Missouri Southern was just somebody who contacted me constantly. I knew nothing about the school. And again, essentially, I had no connections and no guidance in how to navigate that process.
Mm.
So the school that was most committed to communicating with me was the school that I chose,
Okay.
which was Missouri Southern. When I got to Missouri Southern, it was a terrible decision. To be honest, when I look back now,
Yeah.
it's all a learning experience, and it's all something that it has, taught me many things. But when I
Yeah.
look back now, if I would have, thought about it harder, my personality is very, I'm like, I'll prove you wrong. I would have loved to continue to, play at Arkansas State. I loved the coach there. I loved the program.
Yeah.
I just wasn't used to playing under a coach that didn't see my potential, and that hurt
Gotcha.
my pride,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
So that's why I made the decision, like, okay, well, I'm leaving. I'm out. Um, well, when I went to Missouri Southern, that injury bug still fled and followed me. And not only did it follow me, my coach was very toxic.
Mm.
Um, the program was very toxic. Actually, after my first year there, everybody left due to the coach except two of us. Um, and in my first year, again, I was on the court playing. Uh, Non-contact injury, had an ACL injury tear with a meniscal tear. Healed
Is it
from that
was
next
it in the,
year,
is it in the, was it in the same leg or the other leg?
other leg.
Oh, okay.
Then I healed from that and got a meniscal tear. Healed from that, got a labrum tear in my shoulder. healed from that. And the icing on the cake was I had a full Achilles calf rupture that I had to have reconstructed. So, once you get to a certain point, the first couple injuries, you're just
Dang.
that grit and that, determination that you have through a sport, that you learn through a sport, you power through, and you tell yourself you're going to get back in that, as stronger than you were before. But once you hit a certain point, you realize there might be something bigger that's a problem. And then you have to also start looking at what issues could be bringing onto yourself by continuing this pattern in your older age. And and that's something I had to fight through and kind of navigate
So even
and
after
figure
every
out.
one more time, even after like because every one you came back to play the next year until you
Every
finished.
single one. Now, my goal, because I actually left basketball a year early. I had even a red shirt that I could probably appeal for, that I believe I would have gotten. I left it out there because I was so unhappy with the program, and the coach, and I didn't want to move again. And so, I actually ran track for a semester for Missouri
Okay.
Southern. And then, track I didn't get injured in, but while I was doing track, I was still practicing on the side because I was trying to go to maybe a smaller program overseas. And I was working with kind of an AAU program coached by a previous pro athlete, and he was letting me coach with him and learn on the coaching side as well as participate in the guys' practices so that I could try and accomplish what I was wanting to accomplish.
Yeah.
While I was training for that, and I was scrimmaging one of the so this was probably my first year post sports or post college.
Okay.
They asked me to come in and just do some scrimmaging with them. They were short some people, and that's when the Achilles calf rupture happened.
Yeah.
So once that happened, I think I finally came to the realization that my basketball dreams and experiences were coming to an end, and that I didn't want to damage my body even further and
Yeah.
cause lifelong issues. So.
So why do you think it was so hard to just let it go after injury number 7? Like, because for me, I'm thinking like it wouldn't have took me that long. Like, obviously people are different, but why do you think it was so hard for you to just let it go after your
You
body's been through
know,
that? Because at this point, it's not even about basketball. It's like you said, it's about like I have to still walk after
yeah,
basketball. Like I still have to do things. I still will be able to play with my kids, and I'm over here trying to come
exactly.
back and back. So why was it so hard for you to just be like, you know what, it's this is not going. This is it.
Yeah.
Before that big of an injury, that last one.
You know, I would like to, it's funny you asked that because, I think I had a lot of issues that started from back when I was a kid and what
Yeah.
I grew up with in my
Yeah.
home. And what I mean is that really started kind of self-worth
Mm-hmm.
issues that started way, way back when. And, something that I think essentially I realized much later in life is that basketball was something that I very much attached to my identity.
Mm-hmm.
And if I didn't have it, I wasn't worth anything. It was
Okay.
the only arena, it was the only arena I really felt success, that I felt noticed, that I felt where I could relinquish a lot of the emotions that I didn't know how to process at a younger age. Um, it was my whole identity.
Wow.
So when, I went through these injuries, I essentially couldn't let myself let go of basketball because I would rather continue on fighting through the injuries and attach myself to basketball, because if I didn't have basketball, who was I and what was I worth? What could I bring to the table? You
Okay.
know, and at the time, so that's something that I realized, that there was just a really unhealthy relationship with basketball,
Mm-hmm.
although it was a, still something great in my life, and it was an outlet, a healthy outlet that prevented a lot of, me making a lot of bad decisions. It also was very unhealthy.
So speak to the bad decision part. So like now that you look back, but like what are some things that you might have like did different in the aspect of like, I know we're young and sometimes we don't want to listen, but the bad decisions were because of the was related. So my question is the bad decisions related to the self-worth in the identity essentially?
Self-worth, fear
Okay.
and identity. There's so many things, even if I did decide to stay in basketball, fear and self-worth and all of those things played such a, I feel like, a heavy part in my life at the time, that my decision making was,
And so
you
me
know
sitting here listening to that, it, and I don't know how. Let me see how to say it. But like, send me. So my thing is like, I would have thought you would have figured. You know what I'm saying? Like sitting here listening to the stories, like you could have. You had way more grit than most people. Like you went through all those injuries. Like there's no way you wouldn't be like, I can go do anything else. I just went through all of that crap. I can go accomplish anything I want to go accomplish. And then when I
right,
sit here and think about it, I'm like, that's what I would have. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm like, bro. Like, do you not understand? You know, again, you probably just didn't have nobody there to tell you that. But like, do you understand? You just went through this injury, and then came back again, and then came back again. And I'm just like, she ain't gonna let. Like, but that says something about your character. Even though you may have
right,
made a bad decision, but it's still like positive. Like, it's something about your character that you didn't necessarily give up, but that you also it translates like so that you did learn like it translates over. So like I can go be a teacher and be an exceptional one, or be whatever
right.
else and be because I have more grit and I'm gonna work harder than everybody else because I've already proven and shown that.
Right, but what you're saying, again, if you go back to me saying my identity was
Yeah,
in basketball. So that feeling of feeling like, okay, like I can get past this injury, I can get past this injury, I can do anything in the arena, in the scope of
basketball.
basketball.
Yeah,
Because anything before, I wasn't a student that was, I had to struggle for, getting averagely, B's, So, and I didn't have parents that were invested in my life. They didn't come to my games. They didn't talk, they didn't talk life into me.
yeah,
And so I think that at that age, what you're talking about didn't translate over to other areas, in me really realizing and believing in myself that I could do other things. It was
yeah,
like, if I can't do basketball, I can get through, and I have this grit and this determination associated with basketball. But if it's not basketball related, what worth am I? Like,
yeah,
what can I bring to the table? And that took a lot for me personally to translate, because there, again, like, there was just a lot of stuff, I realized that started from a very young age, as far as, emotional and mental maturity and um, negative thoughts and feelings, and not
yeah.
understanding
So you would
that.
link that reason for it not to translate over to just you know how you were brought up is why that's why you couldn't make that connection from
Yeah, for
okay,
sure.
I got you.
For sure.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And if you only thought that you were good at one thing and or even if you didn't think you were good at something else that you just couldn't make that you can make that connection like oh all these qualities are great for other things as well. Like I can go do
Right.
all these other things. So
Right.
it's just so the reason why I say that is because interviewed, um, I've only heard that from the guys that I've interviewed. Like it's a hard kind of like a translation to translate over.
Mm.
So like you're consistent over here in this field, whether it's football, track, but when it came to real life, it's like what happened? Like what happened to all those attributes that you were so good in your sport? Why doesn't it translate over? And it's because like for
Mm-hmm.
me, it's just like it should translate over. If I'm gonna if I'm a consistent basketball player, I'm just a consistent person in general. So it's gonna
Person.
translate,
Right.
right? And so for I've seen it more in guys than I have in girls, and so that's why I was like, oh, okay.
Well, and I think too, because I coached. When I coached on the boys' side for my last couple years. And I think guys are a little bit more prone to identifying with their sport. And
Yeah.
if you connect identity with your sport, and that's where your whole identity lies,
Yeah.
again, those skills can't transfer over because basketball is no longer attached to it, and
Mm-hmm.
those skills are attached to, again, that arena. So
Yeah.
it's hard. So
And so kind of walk us through like how what steps did you have to take now that basketball is over, that last injury, now everything, sports is kind of over. What now did you struggle with outside of the identity? We know that part, but like
mhm.
transitioning to becoming a whole just regular adult.
um
Kind of,
took
what do
me
you don't have
several
to identify
years.
anything, but like kind of walk us through that. Like that injury happened. Now what's next
Mhm.
for you?
Yeah, so at that time, which again, so as I said before, I chose teaching and coaching. And what is coaching? Basketball. Which is still, and don't get me wrong when I say this, I loved, I don't want to say I love teaching. It's tough these days. But I did love coaching.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful opportunity to be part of that process for kids and that voice for kids, and to just to see, the amazing things that you can see kids do at that age. I did love that, but
Mhm.
I also believe that I chose that specific career because I, again, was seeing nothing else in myself but basketball. So, I navigated out of college. I did teaching and coaching for 6 years. Um, a point in time to where, teaching and coaching is hard. I have a lot of respect for people who do that for multiple years. You sometimes leave. I taught math, so there's a lot of paperwork. So I would leave at 6 o'clock in the morning, get to the school to do extra work. After school there was practice or a game, and I would get home on game nights at 10:30. And sometimes that's 3 or 4 times per week.
Yeah.
There's recruiting that you need to do, there's coaching meetings, there's teacher meetings, there's grading, and so there's also all that work when you're home. And one day my husband identified, he was like, look, you are not a pleasant person to be around when you come home. At a certain point, when I would get through, because I would coach volleyball and then I would coach basketball, and when I would get so deep in the year, I would get so worn out and depressed because I didn't have time to give my family, or well, my husband at the time, or myself, my friends. And he was like, you're just not a pleasant person. And so that's when I really started looking inward at myself and thinking, okay, there might be some deeper issues, or maybe I just need a career change. And so that's when, a couple weeks later, actually, we found out we were pregnant with our first child, and our son. And I tell you what, Nini, it was a flip of a switch in my brain. There was no second guessing. I all of a sudden wanted to completely abandon teaching and coaching, because as soon as the thought of being a mom happened and not being home and coming home to my baby 3 or 4 times per week, there are women that can do that and that just do that wonderfully and can handle and
Yeah.
navigate that. For me, it was a flip of a switch, and I immediately started looking for different jobs.
Mm.
And that was really hard. I talked to my husband about that. Like, well, what do I do if I'm not a basketball coach? What do I do if I'm not associated with basketball? I don't have anything to offer. I was like,
Yeah.
put up a dartboard and give me a dart, and I'll close my eyes and I'll throw it at the wall to see what job I'm going to apply for,
Yeah.
and that was kind of a scary transition for me. And so, my husband was like, I mean, you do math, and you've said something about banking, so you want to try that? And I was like, all right, I guess I will. And so, finally I got to US Bank, was a consultant for about 2.5 years, and then now I'm actually a mortgage loan officer for US Bank. And I tell you what, at least so far, it's been the best decision of my life.
Yeah.
I I've have the time to be with my family and to balance family time as well as like being actually having a desire to have a career.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's good because when you said that, I struggle with that. And so, not because I was wanting to be a coach, it was like more of like having this baby. Now I have to figure out like what's important, right? And so,
right.
I'm the person like I think I can do any and all the things, right? I don't care what it is.
Hmm.
I'm never not lack confidence in that area. And so, that,
You?
so, so my issue was that it was almost like a distraction. Now having a baby is like, and it sounds so terrible when I say this, but I
No,
do love my
no,
children.
nope,
But
nope.
it was like
I
it was
get
like a distraction. I'm like, no, I can't go run some big company. Like it wasn't even about like it's like now I can't go be the CEO because now I have to look after this kid. Like I have to balance. Like I
no,
have to look after another human being. Like, and it was like selfish.
no.
And
That's
that's and I would tell people that like me and Jabari were married for like 8 years before we decided to have kids. And people was like, why y'all not having kids? I said, honestly, because I'm too selfish. I don't want to give up my time that I have
you like. This is
because
blowing my mind because okay, so I mean I don't include this part because yeah, it's raw. Like that's raw honesty. And but
yes.
what's great about that and what's something that I recognize about what you just said is that you know what? There's a lot of people that don't address that feeling inside themselves, and then they go have kids, and then they are resentful to their own kids
Yes.
about restraining their opportunities that they have in life. And so, actually, I actually number one because of the issues that I was having, I didn't think I'd get married. Ain't nobody gonna want to deal with this mess. You know, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And number two, I thought, you know, I don't think I want to have kids because I just saw generation after generation of my family kind of do that. They have kids real young, they have multiple kids with multiple dads, you know, and if that happens, you know, yes, it happens. But, you know, some of that is without your control. But it's just a lot of times it seemed like their kids, you know, needed them and they weren't able to give that to them. And I saw that at a young age. I was like, yeah, kids isn't for me. You
Yeah.
know, it wasn't until I was probably 27 or 28, which again, that's when that light kind of went off. And that's when, you know, I was already with my husband that we really I was like, I think I do want to be a mom and I think I can learn how to navigate having children and
Yeah.
getting the best of that world and still, you know, having a career because that's always been a desire of mine. I've never been like, don't put me as a stay-at-home mom. I cannot talk to my kids. I cannot be around, don't, I will not be around kids 24/7. You know, as soon as my husband, especially because I had a really tough first experience with my first two, postpartum, all those things like what you were talking about. As soon as he walked through the door, I mean, I'm calling him on the way to work. How far are you from the house? Okay, here's that baby,
Yeah.
you know. So no, I mean I think that what you're saying is I think that's the best way. You have to, you know, more people need to notice that. And if you still have the desire to have those selfish feelings, you know, one, you need to tell yourself that maybe I can have both as long as you have the support system that can help you with
Yeah.
both.
For sure.
But two, maybe you're not ready to have kids, don't.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
Yeah.
it's not the same journey for everybody.
It's not
So
the same journey. So yeah, I did. So that I did struggle with as far as like it's gonna hinder my what I want to do essentially. And so, um, and it's weird because it took us like it almost. I thought I was gonna be able to have any because it took us almost a whole year to have the first one. So I was like, oh, and I
mm,
hadn't even come to grips to like since it's taking us so long. So I was like, I'm okay not having kids if that's what
right.
it's gonna be. That's what it's intended to be. And then like a couple months later, we got I was pregnant. But and then number two came out of surprise, and I tell Jabari all the time like, and it came during COVID, so there wasn't really much other things to do. But uh, and so like I said, I told him I was like, if I didn't, if number two didn't come as fast as it came, we probably would have an only child. I think it
Mm-hmm.
had to happen the way it happened just because of me and how I'm set up, and like I didn't want to have to go through had to have a 2 C-section. So I was like, I didn't want to have to go through that again.
Mhm.
And then I had to
Mhm.
do all these other things while pregnant. And I was like, I probably wouldn't have done it if I didn't have to get pregnant like back to back.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I probably would have an only kid. And so, but it's tough. I think you're right. People don't say that because they think it sounds bad. But at the same time, like, I don't, and right now, like, I'm at home. Like, never in a million years. You would have asked me this, the oldest is about to be 6 in April. You would have asked me this 4 years ago. I'm like, stay at home mom who? Like, they have no value. Now that I am at home with these kids all day, every day, like, the utmost respect for stay at home moms, because it's
Oh,
so
for
much
sure.
easier. They've been to daycare before, but it's so much easier to pack your kids up and take them to daycare. No shade to people that do it, but I'm just saying it's easier to just do that and just have the rest of, you don't have to worry about that, and you can just go on about your day and not having to worry about this part, And so and I had that, and I was like, oh, they out there just hanging out at the house chilling. Not at all. Not at all. I mean, it probably is some people doing that if they're not really attentive to their kids, but like, it is tough. It's like and I tell people all the time, I said, I've never experienced anything harder than being somebody's mama. Like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life up to this point.
For sure.
Nothing else compares.
I 100% agree. You know what? Stay-at-home mom. I mean, and you know, it's so funny. Literally everything you say, I'm just right there. It should be the highest paying job.
Sure. Like, I need to be getting paid 6-7 figures over here.
Sometimes, yeah. So I'm right along with you. I have the utmost respect for anybody who is a stay-at-home mom, 24/7 homeschooling. Woo.
Yes, and that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. I never would have thought I would be in this place, because and honestly, I you know how, like, you have like a gut feeling, and I'm just like, surely that is not my life. It's gotta be different. So that is currently my life, and for a long time, I was embarrassed to say that. For a long time, because I'm like, surely I could be doing something better, more meaningful than staying home with kids. So that was my like, what do you? And I've never been wrapped up into like a title, but it was just that, like, because I just never see myself ever doing that, and I think that's what it was. But that it's real ghetto at home. So
Yep. I have 2 very feral children. We're at that age where we still can't really navigate going in public a lot. My son is a free spirit and very loud, and my daughter thinks it's funny to disobey. So, maybe soon, but
yeah, kids. Now I got a little bit of grace when I'm like, but I wasn't that kind of kid though. I just think about, like, these kids is wild. I wasn't wild like this.
You ever look back? Because and again, it's
looking
like
back,
God
but
always.
Wow, I wouldn't, and I obeyed. But the only thing now that I do, like, I have to, like, I did have a smart mouth. So the oldest, he gotta have the last word. So he's at that point to where he's gotta have it. He's me made over for sure. And so I'm like, dang, that's what my mama had to deal with in that mouth. And so the little one is, people, if you would see him, you would think that the little one causes the most havoc, and he does, in the sense of, like, he's just busy, but he listens better than the older one. He's just a little bit more wild, like, as far as, like, running around and stuff, like. But as far as listening, he listens better because the older one thinks he got it. He's me, so he thinks he can't nobody tell him nothing. So it's like parenting yourself. Like, it's real.
Oh yeah,
ghetto.
yeah.
It's real ghetto out here.
Yeah.
But so now that we went off on the subject, it's fine. Now that you're in banking, and navigating that part, like navigating having kids, and you're still working, and so you found that balance. Kind of walk us through some stuff that you had to deal with at work, necessarily, that kind of, like, you've taken some of those things that you learned in sports and basketball that you now, like, apply to where you're working, or even just in general, now that you don't have sports anymore, but you can still apply those principles. Where do you see yourself applying those principles, I guess I should say?
Well, I mean, as all who've experienced sports, a lot of the key components that you take away from that, one is self-discipline, routine, uh, the power of teamwork, and the impact that it can have when everyone's on the same page. Um, Communication, very different though,
Yeah.
in my opinion, as far as basketball versus real life. And I think honestly, I mean, all of those things, routine. My mom has always been somebody who's always like, you're so rigid, and I'm really not that, that bad, but I am a person that, you need to tell me a little bit before time, and I need to have a heads up, and my kids and my family, we get up at about the same 30 to 45 minutes every single day. Like, routine is just so important, at least like for our family success and our my job.
Yeah.
Like the routine, the self-discipline of keeping a routine, even if it's, you're not feeling great that day, still making your calls or still getting up at the same time. And it seems like such a small piece, but for us, it's just really been, I think, a key component of uh having success in real life and
Yeah.
being able to work your way up a ladder. Um, Taking corrective criticism. I mean, if you're an athlete, you're going to be taking some corrective criticism every day.
Yes.
And something I've learned as far as that, like not getting offended by it, but looking at it like as feedback, as an opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
and saying, hey, like, wow, somebody's given me some valuable feedback. Maybe it's not even delivered in the way that I want it to be delivered, but what I can control how I can receive that now,
Yeah.
and mentally I have the capacity to do that. So I can say, wow, okay, that's a great point. Obviously, I have some room for improvement there. And again, that's something that I think it all started with basketball and learning how to take in that corrective criticism. So, grit, mental toughness, not giving up,
Yeah.
in real life, you're not going to always get it right the first time. And something, I think especially through all my injuries, I've learned, um, get back on the horse, try again. If you don't win, you learn, and learning is winning. So, as long as you take that perspective, with each experience that you have, whether that's in, you know, sports or your job or motherhood, and learning how to, you know, be a great mom to your kids or a great wife to your husband. All of those things are key components I think I've taken away and really started in basketball.
Wow. That's good. That's good. So what kind of to don't take too much more time, but kind of to I got two last questions. But one is, now that you've gotten to this point in your life, you look back, not anything that you regret, but what is something that maybe you'd have done differently, um, or you wish somebody would have told you during the whole process of going to school and all that, like in college. So what are some? So maybe one or two things, like what have you what have you done differently now that you know what you know now, or what if something that you
Hmm.
wish somebody would have kind of told you, or you would have had somebody in place to be like, hey, whatever, whatever.
Hmm. Don't make decisions in fear. Um,
And when you say
don't put your
fear, to
identity.
clarify that up, what do you mean by fear? Fear of like what?
I think fear holds a lot of us back in making decisions. I mean, just like changing jobs or getting out of, if you're not happy with something and you're not finding fulfillment in it, you're not finding, a deeper meaning to that. Holding on to things or not making necessary changes. Like, change was so scary for me when I was that age.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, the unknown it was just, if I couldn't see it, I
Yeah.
wouldn't go.
Yeah.
And so, I wish somebody would just say, like, make a decision and jump, like, jump it. You don't have to know what's going to come next. You're not going to know what's going to come next. I mean, you know, in motherhood, like you're even like you're going to have this first child, and you go on to the second child, and you still don't know what's coming next because each child is so individually different. Motherhood looks completely different from one child to the other. You're never going to know what the next step looks like.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think don't make decision in fear. Like, make a decision, go forward, learn. If you don't like it, you make another decision to make a change. You know, secondly, just goes back to my whole story. Your identity is not in your sport.
Mm-hmm.
Your identity is in a much bigger purpose. And if you know, believe in God, you know, your identity should lie in the Lord Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you should find a much bigger purpose than basketball, that you can, you know, maybe live your identity through basketball being a platform for.
Yeah.
Um, but that ball's going to stop bouncing one day, and unfortunately sports usually does not go very far, you know, even if you make it to the next level. You know, I mean, look at NFL athletes, you know, they a lot of the times the furthest they can go is 33, 30, 34, and you know, they got to start chalking it up because their body's not doing what they want it to do anymore.
Yeah.
um and there's a lot of life ahead after that, and so realizing that you're, you know, basketball is a wonderful opportunity to create, you know, lifelong experiences and opportunities and connections, but that ball will stop bouncing one
It
day.
will stop bouncing.
And it's not your identity. It's not who you are. Um, it's just an experience that you get to share with others that will make an impact on you. So I think those two things, and have grace, you know. Like I said, I've listened to some of your snippets from other people, and it's so wonderful to hear. There's so many different, you know, takes and
Yeah.
experiences that people have brought out from sports. But you know, me, I was always really, really, really hard on myself.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know that anyone ever really knew that. But I always fell short of my own expectations. So, you know, that last component would probably just be have grace on yourself, allow yourself to fail, and don't be afraid to fail, and learn from your failures, because that right there is going to be the key components in what skyrockets you to success in life, like in anything. So,
No, that's for sure. Not because you kind of answered my last question. It was going to be like, what, unless you have something to add, so I won't assume. So, what is some last things that when somebody watches this episode, what are some of the things that that you want them to hear more than anything throughout this whole podcast? Like, what is one thing, maybe two things that you want them to just grasp onto?
hmm, I mean, it would probably be, you know, those items right
Yeah.
there. And you know, I don't know if if other people have the, you know, the type of journey that I did, and are that hard on themselves, and struggle with those types of things. Um, you know, when I went to Arkansas State, if I were to look at any of my teammates, that's not what I felt like anybody else was experiencing. But people hide what they really are experiencing. Well, you know,
For sure.
they hide what their real emotions, you know, are, and what their struggles are. Um, and you know, I think one of the things that I really, you know, and I want other people to know, is just like my biggest achievement really is, number one, my family,
Yeah.
but two is just the like growth and mental and emotional capacity that I have been able to, you know, I look back at where I was mentally and emotionally, um, you know, starting through basketball and to where I am now,
Mm-hmm.
and just making strides to have more of a healthy mentality and a healthy emotional capacity, so that I'm there for my family and I'm there for my kids, and I can pass that on, and teach them, you know, how to do that themselves, and how to think positively, and to go through challenges, and to look at challenges in a positive way rather than a negative way.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's good. No, yeah, yeah, for sure. Somebody's got the same stuff, like you said. It's like that thing. Like nobody wants to ask a question because they don't want to feel like they're asking a stupid question, even though everybody else has that same question that they want to ask.
yeah.
So, so I'm sure somebody else had those same things. Like for myself in general, like I was really hard on myself. No, and I had, you have certain expectations for yourself when you don't meet those. Because even when people ask
Mhm.
me like, I played at Arkansas State, I was good, I was decent. And the reason why, and other people like, no, you were really good. I said, and for me, I'm like, no, because I had two
Right.
knee surgeries, and I know I could have done way more if I didn't have those two knees. And so that's what I think about. I don't think about, oh, I did do
Same.
great stuff. I did play a whole year with a torn ACL. Like, no, like if I didn't have those injuries, y'all thought I was good.
Yeah.
so and
Uh,
so that's kind of the stuff like we don't, for myself, like you right. Sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit and enough grace when we're
yeah.
when we're in it. And so it's hard to see that stuff when you're in it. Just like anything else, like motherhood, like when are they going to be out of diapers? When are they going to be, you know what I'm saying? Like when you're in it, it's like, and people are like, oh, you gotta enjoy while they're small. I'm like, bro,
I'm like, bro, I'm in
I
the
get
trenches.
it.
I can't be.
I get it, but I'm in it right now, and it don't feel like that. I get you can say that because your kids is grown, but listen, so they grow up really fast. Listen, they're not growing up fast enough for me. So
Right.
so it's tough. It's tough, but yeah, it
Yeah.
is good tough. And that's and the last thing I want to say is like, and this is just sports specific. Like what could you have done differently during that sports journey? As like, so for example, I asked somebody this question. I was like, maybe I should have like not been so worried about just basketball in class, like actually taking time with teammates, developing other relationships with them, because I don't think I did a very good job at that. What is some of the things that you wish you would have done in your sports career, as far as not worried about like, oh, I need to, be this or score this, but like some of the like intangibles, I guess, like fostering relationships or being in the moment. What are some of the things that you wish you'd have done in the actual sport better than the typical
Um.
like scoring points and
Yeah. One, I wish that I would have not looked at it so much at like a job.
yeah
Like I said, I didn't see myself. Nobody in my family went to college. So like the only opportunity I saw for myself to go to college and to get it paid for is to be successful in sports, in basketball. And when I had that mentality, it was like, pardon my language, but don't F this up.
yeah
Like don't F it up. So, even my first year, which was our Arkansas State, I was able to kind of get a connection with you, maybe a couple other teammates. But when I'm telling you, I barely did anything out of sports because I didn't want to screw it up.
yeah
I mean, it went down to as much as uh, don't want to lose extra sleep, and I'm not saying I necessarily needed a party, but I did nothing but go to the gym outside of, I went and played rec ball to try and get more experience because I was worried about losing my opportunity for basketball and for schooling.
yeah
And so I took that way too serious, and I took it to a point where, which leads me to my second one. Absolutely. I wish that I would have taken more time to be open to foster more, relationships. And again, really relationships outside of sports,
yeah
and have like a better and more respective, understanding, and see other opportunities. Like I hung out, if I did hang out with anybody, it was somebody who was either a basketball player or a football player, or, like it was a sports person, because it
right
was like, well, you're not in my bubble.
right
And it's just not, that's just, it's a limited view when you think like that. And there's so much life and experience and relationships that you're missing out of if you don't go explore and take time to make
yeah
those connections. Who knows, maybe I would have been in a a sorority if I would actually. Probably not, but
No, just having those other
um
relationships outside of sports. Even though we are around athletes all day long, it's good to have relationships that maybe they don't play sports, or maybe even, because I know, well, she played a sport, but like I had a roommate. They thought I was crazy when I got there. And I was like, I don't want a roommate with my teammates. It's like, why would you not do that? Y'all travel together, so y'all gone, so you ain't gotta worry about nothing being stolen. Listen, somebody gets stolen, we gonna have a situation anyway.
Yeah,
But
Paul, yeah,
they was
somebody's
like,
gonna see some hands.
I would much rather have a either a different sport or a regular student. And so they were like,
Mm-hmm.
nobody ever asked that. I said, because I know my personality, and I'm like, I get tired of people real quick. And if I have
Yeah.
to be at practice with you, if I have to sleep with you, like on the road, be in the same hotel as you, and we are spending all our time together, I need a break from you. Like I need a break.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go back to my dorm room after I've been traveling with you all week, and then I gotta go back to our dorm room together. And see, I said, I can't do that. And so,
Yeah.
so I've never had a basketball. Oh, I'll say never once, and I did not like it. But one year I had teammates as basketball as roommates, but all the other years I had it. I think I had like a track athlete, and then my freshman year I had it all by myself because the girl had dropped out of school. But it was like, yeah, like you need like like because all the time you don't want to talk about the basketball. Like I want to go talk about something else sometimes. But
Yeah.
that's good.
Just,
So
I mean, yeah. And like I said, just make sure, again, that ball's gonna stop bouncing. And when it does, like those experiences are irreplaceable, in your life, but understanding like just take it to the fullest of what it is at the time and have grace on yourself and enjoy it. Like don't make it a job, and absolutely 100% go have fun while you're doing it. And me, I couldn't have fun. It was too serious. Like there was too much at risk.
yeah.
And now I look back like, so what, something was at risk, and if so what if I lost my scholarship or whatever, I would have had fun doing it, like, and that's what I wish that people would, then again, maybe people weren't, what didn't take it as seriously as I did, but in my perspective and in my experience there was a lot to lose, and so I feel like I lost out on a lot of, instead of seeing that as a grind all the time, I lost out on seeing that experience as just a really fun, light experience that I got to, have.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. And that is game, and thanks for being on the podcast.
If I'ma start it, I'ma finish it. I'ma show all of you folk with the businesses. Walk